Right. Quick TLDR for this video. Your entire social anxiety is based off the fact that you cannot be present when you're talking to people. That's it. Now, let me explain. Right, so we've got two key fundamentals to this, right? You've got the social anxiety and you've got what it causes, which is an inferiority complex. And I'm chucking around lots of words right now. I promise I'm going to explain. The important thing to realize right now, though, is just the fact that you have social anxiety, and because of that, you are very likely to develop an inferiority complex. Why is that? We're going to come to it in a little bit more detail, but basically the idea is that because socializing is something that a lot of people do pretty easily, the fact that we have like an anxiety towards it makes us sometimes feel like a bag of trash. So that's why you sometimes, if it happens enough, you start to feel a bit inferior. The thing is, when you develop that mentality and you go, I'm inferior, it's actually going to make it harder for you to go and socialize, because you're going to be like, I'm someone who's socially anxious, which makes it harder for you to actually socialize without anxiety. So that's where the second arrow comes in. That's where like that second bit comes in. And then that is basically that loop will just keep going and going and going. But before we go any further, I know you're confused. Why is he talking about inferiority complexes? Let's talk about that some more. There's two main reasons, right? First reason is the fact that when you're feeling socially anxious, you feel pretty bad for just having it. Like I said a couple minutes ago, a lot of people socialize without much trouble. And when you're anxious doing it, it feels like a pretty silly thing to be anxious about. I know that's not just a me thing. So that's the first reason why you develop a kind of inferiority complex. It's like, why am I even having to deal with this? Right? Like, so many people do this without having to make this something they need to improve on. They just already have it. That's the first thing. And that's okay. These things happen. The second one's more important. The second one is that because you're feeling socially anxious, sometimes you're not quite yourself when you're socializing. Now, I think this is the much bigger one, because even if you don't have that thing where like you feel bad about having social anxiety, even if you have a better relationship with it than I used to, when you're in a social situation, and I know you relate to this, when you're like caught in a loop, you're not quite there. You're not like active. You're not, the things you're trying to say don't quite come out right. Things are just a little bit off. Either your like jokes are like a second off, or like the way you say it is off. Something just isn't right. Your full personality isn't radiating outwards because you're caught inwards. And that's another reason why we develop these inferiority complexes, because technically speaking, we are worse than others at those engagements, because we're kind of within ourselves dampened. Our like social spirit is dampened because behind this layer of our own sort of being stuck in our own heads. And when that happens enough times and you see everybody else and they're just natural and you're just a little bit separated, you develop this kind of like, oh, I don't belong here kind of mentality around it. And I really want to emphasize that we need to break that, because you do belong in those situations. Like you do deserve to just chit chat and have a good time. Nobody is thinking that like, oh, I really don't want that guy to come over and chat. It's like, that's stupid. But key takeaway here is how social anxiety causes inferiority, but then the inferiority also makes our social anxiety worse. It's a loop. They're related to each other. It's like chicken and egg. So it all comes back to that loop, you see. It's like you go from the social anxiety to the inferiority complex, and back to the social anxiety, inferiority complex, I'm not good enough, what is going to happen, so much, and you're just going around and around and around and around. And I will bet my bottom dollar that loop, that scramble, that feeling is pretty much what it feels like in your head when you're having like a socially anxious experience. I know for sure as well, it used to happen to me a lot. It just feels just like, you're just caught in the middle of it, right? This is your brain, and it feels like scrambled eggs. It's just the way it is. Just the way it is. And it's all caused by that loop between inferiority complex, social anxiety, I'm not good enough, I've got social anxiety, this is gonna, and you're just separated from everybody and you're not really present at all. Answer my own question here. What does this have to do with being present? What does any of this have to do with my cheeky TLDR at the start? I'm glad you asked. It's quite simple, actually. I would like to present to you bloke number 2. You and me, we're bloke number 1. There's a bloke number 2. Now, bloke number 2 is somebody that we all know. Bloke number 2 is a sort of guy, when you look around and you're having a socially anxious experience and you look around and you find this from other person who's just stood there. He's just sat there. He's not nervous at all. He's not panicky at all. He's just there. He's not necessarily the funniest person or the best looking person or the most charming or most charismatic or more this or most that. No, it's just the fact that he just seems very comfortable in that situation. Why does he feel comfortable? You guessed it, because he is very, very present in that experience. That's what we've got to do. That's what we've got to do. Which leads us to my final question. Now that we know we have to be present to solve this little loopity-loop in our heads, to solve this inferiority complex, we've got to become present. That begs the biggest question of the evening. How do we learn to be present? Look, being present as a whole is something that's incredibly complicated, but in regards to social anxiety, it's something that's incredibly simple. You just got to realize that everyone's an idiot. Everyone. Every single human being that's ever existed is an idiot. That's what you got to realize. I want you to take a second and really read that tweet for me. Really read it. There are no adults. No one's got it figured out. See, what you gotta do is you gotta instill this mentality inside of you that, or kind of just realize, it's not even a mentality. You just have to realize, oh my God, everybody's an idiot. Everybody's figuring this out as they go. Everybody's figuring it out as they go. There's nobody who's like, there's no like teacher, there's no like parent, there's no like arbiter, there's no authority figure that's like, oh, you deserve to be part of this social group, or you deserve to be this, or you are like along the right track to come and talk to these people. Like there's nobody has that right over you, because nobody has it figured out. You're not behind anyone, you're not inferior to anybody, you're just here. And that's so relevant to socializing, because the whole point of socializing is that you're there and the other person's there and you're engaging together. But you can't engage with them if you're just caught in this like, oh my God, I've been socially anxious for years. Of course, I don't know what to say. I don't know. Then you're caught in that loop again. No, you're you, and that's fine. That's perfect. So just be there. And this is so relevant to people like you and me who get into that loop of like that. Just realize that like there's no like pressure on it. There's nothing like everybody is just a child running around trying to figure out what's going on. So you're good. Just be there. Be present when you talk to them. See, what this will do is it will bulldoze your inferiority complex, because since we're all idiots, since we're all children, none of us have anything over the other person. You know, there's another quote, there's no abnormal, there's no abnormal responses, there's only normal responses to abnormal situations. It's not your fault that you felt socially anxious. So stop beating yourself up about it. Stop that loop. You're good enough, you're chilling. I'll say it one more time, just be in the conversation. It's all good. Right, so what's the action step? What's the thing that you can actually do? Not just an idea, what's the thing that you can actually practice? Affirmations. For this thing, affirmations is the best way to go. Just before you're about to go out to a party, or when you're talking to somebody, when you're at the gathering or something, just give yourself a second and just to remind yourself, say it to yourself, write it on a note on your phone. Just on your phone, write it as a note and just write idiot mentality. Idiot mentality. Simple. If you want, screenshot it and make your screensaver. Idiot mentality. Idiot mentality. And just affirm it to yourself. And I want basically those words to serve as a short circuit for you to remember this whole video. For you to remember that we understand your social anxiety loops. We understand what you're going through. So instead of having to sort of go into the bathroom and watch this whole video, just get those two words, idiot mentality, get them on your phone, and then go realize, oh, this is a massive world and nobody knows what's going on. and I'm just going to sit here being stuck in my own head rather than enjoying the conversation I'm a part of. That's your action step. Give it a go. Let me know how it gets on. As always, thank you so much for watching this. Please leave a comment because the algorithm loves it. And as always, reach out if you want to chat about anything. Instagram's in the description. Thanks.